Fantastic. How's everybody doing?
Great.
Oh, that doesn't sound very good, but I'm going to change things. I'm kind of an aggressive speaker. I was on chemotherapy last year for 7 months. And in January, they took me off of chemotherapy because of extreme circumstances. Extreme things were going on with me. They had to pull me off of chemo. I started chemo again last night. Now, without me saying anything to anybody in here about what I have, how many people in here, by a round of applause, how many people in here believe that I can beat this? You're darn skippy, I can beat this. I know I can beat this. Why? Because of several reasons. Reason number one is because I have friends in high places. A lot of you know what I'm talking about. Reason number two is because I believe that I can beat this. I've done it several times before. My family, we are professional cancer beaters. If you know anything about my family, you know both myself and my 2 children have all dealt with cancer within 1 year of each other. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. The third reason as to why I know I can beat this is because I believe I'm the greatest motivational speaker in the world. Seriously, I believe that I can talk myself right up out of sickness. I am such a motivational, influential speaker, I can get everybody in this room to believe that dairy cows drink milk. Seriously, I'll get to that. My entire life has been about overcoming objectives and adversity. This right here, you guys know this, guys, Shaquille O'Neal, huge man. When he came into the room, the entire doorway shrunk up. But this picture means so much to me because this picture is about overcoming adversity. 1.5 years before that picture was taken, that little boy there, that's my son. And 1.5 years before that, they found 3 tumors in his brain. One was the size of a tennis ball, one was the size of a golf ball, one was the size of a grape. They were all malignant, cancerous tumors. 6 months before that picture was taken, I flatlined twice down in Indianapolis at a hospital from a tumor that had ruptured inside of me. We are all about overcoming adversity, and this picture right here sums up what I've been through. And like I said, we're a family of professional adversity overcomers, if you will, and that sums it up. And I'm going to tell you about it. I got to back up a little bit. You guys want to hear about it? Yeah. All right, here it goes. I was in the Army when I grew up, and the Army was really cool except for one thing. You see, I grew up in Columbia City. And Columbia City in the 70s was 99.9% white. I was the darkest thing in Columbia City in the 70s. But my parents raised me. They taught me to be a good kid. And I had to deal with a lot of racism, but I always turned the other cheek. I didn't have a problem with it. Not much of a problem with it, all through grade school, middle school, high school, everything. Not until I got to the Army. And they put me into an entirely black platoon. And if you don't think culture shock exists, let me tell you it does. I didn't do anything right. I didn't talk the right way. I didn't walk the right way. I didn't try to get to know the right women. I sure didn't dance the right way. Okay? These guys were out there popping and locking and doing all that stuff, and I was looking like Carlton from The Fresh Prince. You know what I'm talking about? But I was just having fun. I was a kid. That's what I knew. That's what I understood. But people messed with me a lot. I caught a lot of trouble in the Army because of the fact that people thought I was different. People picked on me. People bullied me because I was different. And I made a vow that I was going to do something about it when all that happened later on, and I wound up doing that. But that caused a lot of problems for me. That created what's called an identity crisis. Then, 3 days before we were ready to graduate from basic training, a gun battery that was 6 miles away overshot their target by 3 miles. Don't ask me how somebody can miss a target by 3 miles. But in Fort Sill, Oklahoma, they figured out a way to do it. And this gun battery dropped one of these artillery shells right in the middle of my platoon 3 days before we were supposed to get ready to graduate. A lot of people died. A lot of people got injured. I was one of those people that got injured, but my physical injuries were not nearly as bad as my mental injuries. They sent us on our way, and they sent us about our business because we had a war going on at that time. It was Desert Storm. And Desert Storm was getting ready to take off. But things started happening with me. I started having these nightmares, started having these horrible dreams, reenactments of the accident, but it was a lot bloodier, it was a lot gorier, and I would snap out, and I would get mad, and I would get into fights with people. And our unit got ready to go to Desert Storm, and my commander came to me and said, Ethan, you're not going to Desert Storm. We don't think you're stable enough to go over there with us. Because I had been causing a lot of trouble. So they sent me to Washington, D.C. They sent me to Walter Reed Army Medical Center. And when I got there, I checked in at the Army Medical Center, and they said, what are you here for? They said, I've got something called post-traumatic stress disorder. They said, okay, go up to the 7th floor. So I went up to the 7th floor, and when the elevator doors opened up, I saw those words right there. Psych ward. And I'm like, oh, there must be some mistake. So I stepped back on the elevator, and I went back downstairs, and I said, you must have made a mistake. You sent me to the psych ward. She said, what are you here for? I said, post-traumatic stress disorder. She said, oh, you're in the right place. And right here, I had to learn how to do what I call crossing the line. And when I say crossing the line, everything that's negative in your life has a line. And if you cross it, you automatically turn it into a positive. And that's what I do. My life is filled with negatives, so I have to cross the line, and I have to turn it into a positive. And that's always been my motto. So how do I turn this into a positive? Well, I found out they held offices on the psychiatric ward, so I ran for office. And I won. I was president, that's right. I was Captain Looney, okay? And as president of the psychiatric ward, you get to arrange events for the psychiatric ward. And what I did was, for the first time in psychiatric ward history, I had a talent contest. And let me tell you something, you have not truly laughed until you viewed a talent contest on a psychiatric ward. One of the funniest things you could ever possibly see. But that right there is turning a negative into a positive. It's called crossing the line. Now, they let me out of there. Actually, I did a really good job of acting. I said, oh, I'm just fine. So they let me go. But a year later, that PTSD started coming back on me. And I had problems in dealing with it. I had no idea what was going on in me, but I knew I had this undesirable quench, this undesirable thirst to go out there and do things that would quench my idea for adrenaline. So I did crazy adrenaline stuff. I bungee jumped. I jumped out of an airplane, and it was cool for a second, but it got old. It got boring. Nothing was good enough. So I started hanging out with the wrong crowd, and when you hang out with the wrong crowd, you start doing as wrong crowds do, and that's exactly what I did. By hanging out with them, they said, hey, we need to do more and more exciting stuff. And I'm telling you, I was going crazy. The identity crisis was mixing with the post-traumatic stress disorder, and I had no idea what to do. I was going to Ball State at the time, and I would ride on my car. I would ride on top of my car. This is no lie. I would ride on top of my car. I'd set the cruise control on 60 miles an hour, going down 69, and I would sit up out of the moonroof, and I would ride on top of the car, driving with my foot. That was exciting to me until I got hit with something. It was a bee, a rock, or something. It made me decide that that probably wasn't a good idea. But the big guy looked out for me. Nothing happened, but I still didn't learn my lesson. And I started hanging out with this group of guys that were into robbing people. And I thought, this will be really cool. This will be really cool. But I was against violence. So I didn't want to hurt anybody. So I decided the way I was going to rob people, I broke off on my own. I said, I'm going to do this by myself. I said, and I'm going to rob people, and I'm going to rob pizza delivery people. But I'm not going to rob them for their money. I'm going to rob them for their pizza. And I had a moniker. They called me the Pizza Bandit. They did. Some of you might remember. This is about 20 years ago. I was the Pizza Bandit. And I would go around, and I'd be so polite with the people, and all I'd want, and they try to give me their money. I'm like, no, I don't want your money. I just want your pizza. What do you got in there? And I would take it. It sounds funny, doesn't it? Now, the Fort Wayne Police Department didn't think it was that funny. When they finally called up to me, they couldn't believe it, because if you're going to take up armed robbery as a hobby, you probably shouldn't be 6'8", okay? But because I was the most easily identifiable robber they ever had. And so I had all these charges looking at me. They finally caught up to me. I was in jail, and I had all these jailhouse attorneys, not real attorneys, but just people that are in there with you that allegedly know the legal system. And they said, hey, you're a good kid. You've never gotten in trouble before. They're just going to give you a slap on the wrist, and then they're going to send you home. When I got to prison, I realized you shouldn't listen to jailhouse attorneys because they sentenced me to 10 years in prison. And I was petrified. I was scared. All right? Just like anybody going to prison. You know, I was out there having fun. I didn't want to hurt anybody. I would have learned my lesson right then and there, but there was a lot that I had to learn from this place. And I did. I wanted to know. I said, how can I get out of here as fast as possible? They said, well, you need to prove to the people that you are a responsible citizen. So I took every single class they had. I took Narcotics Anonymous, and I didn't do drugs. I took Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't drink. I took anger management, and I wasn't even pissed off. I took all this stuff because they said it was going to make me a responsible citizen. They said if I did this, they would let me back into society. So when I got out there, I was so excited. I said I would do the work of 10 men combined. With everything that I've been through, I will never go through that again. Just give me another chance and watch what I do. And every place I went in there and they said, Mr. Birch, do you have an education? I said, yes. Yes, I do. Graduated from college with honors. They said, Mr. Birch, do you have any experience? I said, yes. Yes, I do. 10 years. I could sell snow to an Eskimo. They said, Mr. Birch, do you have any felonies? I had been rehabilitated, right? So I said, yes. Yes, I do. 5 of them. And at that point in time right there, they said, Mr. Birch, have a nice day. Nobody wanted to pay attention to me because of this mistake I had made, because of this blotch on my record. So I started doing these nickel and dime jobs. I started doing jobs anywhere that wouldn't do a background check. You know, I started working in fast food places, started selling vacuums door to door. A 6'8" black guy should not be selling vacuums door to door. You know, I don't know what you would say if I was at your door with a big old vacuum, you know what I'm saying? But I would probably say no right away. But I wasn't making a difference. I wasn't doing anything. I had a family. I had a girlfriend. I couldn't support any of them because nobody would give me a chance. And I struggled for 10 years. And finally, after all this struggling, I decided, I was like, well, if I'm going to struggle, I'm going to do something that I love to do. So I started getting into radio because radio stations don't do background checks. Trust me, if radio stations did background checks, there would be no radio stations. Okay? And I started becoming more and more popular with local people because I would do all their commercials. As I was growing up, I would always do voices, and I would always mimic everybody's voices, and it got on my parents' nerves immensely. Couldn't stand it, you know, because my mom's German, and I'd always make fun of her accent. Oh, Ethan, you have such a, you know, and she would go, she's like, stop it. But I had fun with it. And with the radio, I got to do my voices. I could do Kermit the Frog. Hi, Kermit the Frog here. Why are there so many songs about rainbows? I bet when you got up this morning, you didn't think you were going to see a 6'8" black guy doing Kermit the Frog, did you? But this is what I did, and the radio stations loved it, and they went crazy over it, and I became very popular with my voices and my commercials and things like that. And then I branched out a little bit. I started speaking for a local university. I started recruiting high school students to go to college, and they said, well, you've got a really good story. You should put some of your story into the recruitment process. And well, they shouldn't have done that because that turned into the Ethan Birch Show really quick. And I started talking about myself and the trouble that I've been through and how important it is to take advantage of the opportunities that are in front of you. And things really started building up for me. I became very popular as a motivational speaker. But then it came time for me to cross the line again. My life was very positive at this point. But then something really crazy happened. My entire family got hit with cancer. My youngest son, like I said before, they found 3 tumors in his brain. They gave him less than a 5% chance of survival. He received more chemotherapy than any human being had on the planet when he went through his. And every single day, I had to put a smile on his face. Every single day, he threw up several times a day. But I had to find a way to put a smile on his face. I don't care if it took me falling and hitting my head or running into the wall. Whatever it took, I was going to make him laugh. I was going to make him happy, which wasn't very easy for me because at the same time he got sick, my wife accused me of giving him cancer because they found out that it came from my DNA, and she filed for divorce. Yeah, make something positive out of that. I was in a very dark place, but I couldn't let that affect me. I had to keep going, not only for the sake of my child, but I had another child who at the time, I was like, well, I wonder, since this is so rare, maybe we should get my other son checked out. And that's exactly what we did, and sure enough, he had it. They found cancer in his leg, and the bones in his leg started to deteriorate, and they thought that they might have to cut his leg off. All right, and at that point right there, I prayed, and I asked the big guy, I said, they don't deserve it. They don't deserve to die. If you need somebody down here to have cancer, I said, give it to me. And if you've never been aware of that phrase, be careful what you ask for, man, my kids got good so fast, and then right after they got good, bam, there I was. They found the tumor inside of me, and before they could get it out, it ruptured, and I wound up flatlining twice on that hospital bed. I'm on life support right there. And when they told me that I had flatlined, that scared me because I thought about my kids, and I thought, what could they remember? What would they remember about me? And they were 6 and 2 at the time, which was nothing, so I always had a little hobby with music. So I started writing life lessons through music on things that I didn't want them to do, about lying, about going to school, about being happy, being positive, taking advantage of opportunities and things like that. And I made this music out. After I got better, I made a little CD. My son took it to school. His teacher heard it, took it to the principal. The principal heard it and said, hey, everybody needs to hear this, but hey, can you do me a favor? So the principal said, can you make me a song about the kids wearing their pants halfway down their backsides? So I made a song called Pull Your Pants Up. And I never realized how much of an epidemic that was until I made that song, because all of a sudden, absolutely everybody in the country wanted me in their school telling kids to pull their pants up. Now, that's not all I do. I got a song about Abraham Lincoln. You guys say Lincoln. Lincoln. Say Lincoln. Lincoln. And I go around to schools and I tell the kids, I say, who taught himself to read? Lincoln. Who fought to set slaves free? Lincoln. Who kept his top hat clean? Who was president in 16? Lincoln. Do you see how catchy that is? And people learn from that. Rap music, something negative. 99.9% of the rap music songs out there, you would not want your children listening to. Trust me, I can't stand it. I can't stand how they abuse their authority and they put that garbage out there because they know these young minds are listening to it and they know these young minds are acting on that. So what I did was I made a CD. I made a rap CD that is just as good as what you hear on the radio, except it's got positive messages. I go around the school teaching kids not to bully, because when I was in school, getting picked on by all the white kids, when I was in the Army, getting picked on by all the black guys, that stunk. And I wanted to do something about it, so I made a song about bullying, positive. That's what I'm talking about, and that's what I go out and do. In your life, there are so many things, so many little things that you let get you down. And what you need to do is turn that negative, cross it. Cross that line and turn it into a positive, because it is really not that bad. Now, I'm going through chemo again, and a lot of people ask me, how can you be so happy? How can you be so active? How can you be so hyper? And I'm like, please, I asked for this. I asked for this. My kids have been healthy ever since. Now, if my kids got sick again, I'd be, woo! I'd be upset. I'd be like, come on, really? I thought we had a deal, But they're not. They're completely healthy, and I asked for this, and this has woken me up. This right here has, kind of like given me an expiration date, if you will. I don't think I'm going anywhere. But when they tell you that you have a terminal illness, that makes you think, hey, have I left my mark? And that's what I'm doing, and hopefully I'm doing that with somebody here today. Hopefully somebody in here can change a little something about maybe something they get irritated about. Maybe something that they yelled at somebody about that person didn't deserve to get yelled at about. Cherish every single moment. I MC a lot of events around town as far as dance competitions and things like that. And it really hit me this past weekend. I'm the MC for Dance Moms. Anybody watch Dance Moms? So it's crazy. but I'm the voice. I'm the voice of dance moms. And as I'm watching these young people up there dance, and I turn around and I look at the crowd, and I see parents out there wiping tears away, I realize that's it right there. This is the secret to happiness. The secret to happiness is living in the moment. The secret to happiness is knowing what you have right there and right then. Not worrying about what you should have gotten or what could have happened. Being thankful for what you've got right then and right there. That's what the secret to happiness is. Living in the moment, and that's what I do every single second, every single moment of every single day. And I urge you to do the exact same thing. I've got a song called That's What's Up. And Jenny wanted me to put one of my songs in there, so I'm going to give you a verse from That's What's Up to give you an example of what I talk about in my music. It's Big 6'8", and I live it how I spit it. If you want to know the story, let me tell you how I did it. When no one looked and I cried because my 2-year-old bout died. When 3 tumors were removed from his mind. But we kept it positive and we always had fun. When 6 months later, cancer hit my other son. I said to the bigger, my children need to live. I told him, give it to me. And don't you know he did? It took a real long time and a couple flat lines, but now we're all just fine. And now I'm telling you, that's what's up. And I get the kids up and I get them dancing, and they're dancing to this music, and when they listen to my CD, they are in there and they're pumped and they're positive and they're going to school. They're not picking on people. They're not going in there with their pants hanging halfway off their backsides. I can't stand that, and every time I do see that, I tell them to pull their pants up, and I hope you do the same thing because, I mean, we've had some pretty crazy fads as, you know, as people with just doing absolutely everything. But this is, in my opinion, one of the worst, and we've got to stop it. But that's what I do. I turn negatives into positive. Rap music, to me, was a negative. I turned it into a positive, and I hope if you have negatives in your life that you'll do the exact same thing. You will turn them into positives. Now, I told you, I got a little test for you before I go. I told you what I was going to have you believe, and I'm going to do a quick test. And to see if your brain is capable of changing negatives into positives, I'm going to ask you a question. Real simple. I need you to answer it. And every time I'm going to ask you again and again, I need you to get a little bit louder. Something like this. What is 5 plus 5? 10. What is it? 10. What is it? 10. What is it? 10. Okay, what color is this right here? White. What is it? White. What is it? White. What is it? White. Okay, what do cows drink? You see what I'm saying? Train your brain to avoid the negativity. You can trick it. You can train it. Now, if you believe I am going to do well on this round of chemo, I need you guys to give me a huge round of applause after I say the words, thank you. My name is Ethan Birch. You guys have been fantastic. Thank you.